Joe Walker here at Def Digits Guitar Lessons, and I'm going live right now for my student Caroline, who has been working on songwriting lately, and we've discovered some songs that she's learning that she may want to harness that are using somewhat simple progressions using the 1, 4, and 5 chords in a few different keys. These are very, very common. She has actually encountered these chords in many, many keys over many, many songs, and you probably have too if you've played a lot of songs. Whether you realize it or not, they're in there. 1, 4, and 5 are very, very common chords. So here's what it means to have a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord. When we're playing in a certain key, if I'm playing C, F, and G, if you've played a song in the key of C, then you've probably encountered these 3 chords in the same song together, C and F and G. We're in the key of C when we do this because C sounds like home. And oftentimes if you put all the chords together that you're hearing in a song, one of them will sound like it has this magnetic or gravitational pull, like everything wants to come back to C. If I'm playing F, it doesn't sound finished. If I'm playing G, it doesn't sound finished. If the song also has a D minor in there, or an A minor, or an E minor, none of these sound very stable until C sounds like, now everything's back home. If you're a singer and you've ever done do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, like that, it's do in the key that you're in. So C feels like do. That means the C is the 1 chord. And we would name all the rest of the chords in that key based on the scale degree, using the C major scale, going up through that major scale and numbering those notes and then building a chord off of each one. We don't need to do that theory right now, but that's where these numbers come from. When we use Roman numerals, we're specifically talking about chords built off of those scale degrees instead of just the notes. We go through with the notes, starting with C in the key of C. C is number 1. D is 2, E is 3, F is 4. So if we build a major chord off of F, then that's going to be our 4 chord. Roman numeral 4 to tell us that it's a chord and not just a note. And then number 5 would be G. So those are the 3 chords that we're using. That's why they're called 1, 3, and 5. When we move to different keys, they will still feel like the 1 chord. I said 1, 3, and 5, didn't I? 1, 4, and 5. They will still feel like 1, 4, and 5, but they will be different chords in every key. I have examples written up here. When we're in the key of C, C is our 1 chord, F is our 4 chord, and G is our 5 chord. The 5 chord could be a 7th chord, a dominant 7. So this could be a G7 chord if we want it to be. G, G7, C. For our purposes today, I'm probably going to skip all of those 7th chords. If one of those comes up in a song that you're playing, just know that it's normal. If that's the 5 chord, it's not going to sound out of place, and it's not going to sound like you're being pulled out of the key at that moment because the chord is weird. If it's the 5 chord and we get a dominant 7 chord like D7 or A7 in those keys, then that's totally normal. It's inside the key. So let's go through and look at these groups of chords in the different keys. We've got the key of C on the top. Key of G is next. G is our 1 chord. And right now, we're not hearing that as the 1 chord. I'm not anyway. I'm still hearing it as the 5 chord. And without any other context, I can't hear it as the 1 chord. Unless I really think about what does the new 4 chord sound like. I'm not going to feel it that way until I really hear the other chords in it. So I go to the 4 chord, C. That feels like 1 because I'm still hearing it in this context. This is the thing about keys and music, is that you need the full context of the key to really sound like you're in that key. So if I throw that D in there, that's going to make us sound like we've gone somewhere new. Finally, now it sounds like, oh no, where are we? So now we've got to mix these chords together, get them all in our ear at the same time. G, C, and D. Now at this point, to me, they sound like 1, 4, and 5. G is the 1, C is the 4, D is the 5. If I land back on the 1, now G sounds like home. In that context, when we had the F chord in there, C sounded like home. Now G sounds like home. So this is going to be the case as we go through all of them. As soon as we go to a new key, if it has any overlap with the key we were just hearing, then what we were just hearing is still the context that we're hearing it in. So when we go to this new one, let's start on that A7 chord, on the 5 chord. So now we're going to the key of D. There we go. Going to the key of D. If I play A straight away after hearing the key of G, suddenly all at once we're in a new key, because that was not in the context of what we were just playing. So now we've broken the old context and we hear this as one of our new chords. We want A and G and D. Now D feels like 1, and A feels like 5, and G feels like 4. Then we go to our new key, the key of A. We need A and D and E, and I'm going to start with E, and instantly it feels like we're somewhere new again. We have that same effect. So then we mix all those chords together, make sure you're hearing them all. I'm just randomly bouncing between them to get them all in my ear, and then you get the whole context of that key. A feels like 1, D feels like 4, and E feels like the 5 chord. And the last one at the bottom, E, A, and B. E, A, and I usually will do B7 in this case. Because a B chord, I'll need to use a bar chord for that. So B7 is just another open chord. If you know it, you can play it. E, A, and B7, and back to E. Now E feels like our 1 chord. So if that B7 is uncomfortable for you, or if any of those other chords are not under your fingers yet, then you can skip that key and try this in the keys that are most comfortable for you. So I've got a few progressions written down for you to try. And the way to use these would be, number 1, if you're learning songs, try to recognize when these things are happening so that you can harness it and say, oh, that's the same thing that happened in the last dozen songs I learned, the 1, 4, 5, 4, whatever the progression is that you notice that you're seeing over and over. It's very nice to recognize it and say, oh yeah, I've done that in a different key. Now I'm doing it in this key on this song. And you make those connections where things are actually similar. So we've got a 2-chord progression, 1 and 4 going back and forth. I was also going to mention the other way you can use this is in your songwriting. Use this for coming up with ideas, get something simple going on the guitar, and you can come up with melodic ideas over the top of it and eventually make it more complex if you want to. Let's start with key of C, doing 1 and 4 back and forth. So that's C and F back and forth. So like that, I'm just doing 2 beats on each chord. We could do something, we could expand this more. This isn't telling us how long to spend on each chord. We could do 4 measures on the 1 chord, 4 measures on the 4 chord. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, and the 4 chord. So we can do that in lots of different ways, different speeds, different timing of those 2 chords, and we can do it in other keys as well. Let's try doing that same thing in the key of G. So now it's going to be, now let's do it in something more foreign, A and D. Let's do it in the key of A. So we're using the A chord as our 1 and D is the 4 chord. So experiment like this. There's so many combinations, I'm not going to do them all right now. Just take that progression and do it in different keys, do it at different speeds. Experiment with how the music feels as you're flowing through it. Let's look at the 1 and the 5 chord now. Let's do the key of G for the 1 and the 5. So we've got G as our 1 chord, and the 5 chord is going to be D or D7. Now let's see, I'll come up with just making up the speed and the timing of the chords as I do this, just trying to experiment and do different things. So the 1 chord will go 5 chord, 1, 5. Each one of these that I'm doing right now sort of feels like it could be the beginning of a song. If I wanted to take that idea and pursue it and see what else I can come up with, write lyrics over the top of it, it feels like it's fertile ground to put more ingredients in there. Let's go to the next one, 1, 4, 1, 5. Let's come back to the key of C for this one. C is the 1, F is the 4, back to C, and then G is the 5. 1, 4, 1, 5. Again, try that in all different keys at different speeds. Now we're on to 1, 4, 5, 4. Let's do this in the key of D. 1, 4, 5, 4. 1, 4, 5, 4. Finally, let's look at the last one. 1, 5, 4, 5. Let's do this in the key of G. 1, 5, 4, 5. That's G, D, C, D. So I messed with the timing as I was doing that. I felt like I wanted that C chord to come just a little bit early. So I did it. So that's part of the experimentation as you take each of these progressions and do them in different keys. And then over time, try to recognize when you're playing a song, recognize when the 1, 4, and 5 chord come up. They might be in one of these simple progressions. They might be in some other order, and there might be some other chords thrown in there. But when you see A, D, and E together in a song, try to recognize that, that's 1, 4, 5 in the key of A. When you see G, D, and C together, try to recognize that those are 1, 5, and 4 in the key of G. Whatever the chords are, try to start recognizing when you see the 1, 4, and 5 because they're all over the place, and it's very helpful to recognize when you're playing the same progression in different keys, because then you can harness the things that you know, as opposed to trying to relearn new things on every single song that you do. That's it for today. Good luck. Thank you for watching. See you next time.